Today's date is April 9th in the year 2026. We're going to be discussing the latest, which includes news of advanced weaponry, murdering hundreds of people, injuring nearly 1,000 in southern Lebanon, at a moment in time in which they will be executing based on race. They will be executing Arabs in Israel, the nation that I did not criticize for many years while I was involved in exposing that day that led to these wars. I was always exposed to looking in that direction. I literally was convinced by the left in America and others that going down that direction was no bueno. And there's many false truths we've been told by both the left and the right when it comes to racial equality. And I'm the man that's going to write that book, that it's going to expose the things that no man on earth has about the corruption within this nation. Because right now we're heading back to a dark time in history, but it's not going to be the Jews, in my opinion. It's going to be the Arabs. But on the left, they are continuing to package it because of October 7th that it is the Arabs that are the Nazis. In many, many cases, on NPR and on left-controlled media. There is no real difference in America when it comes to what these people are doing to those people over there. And that is what people need to understand on both the left and the right that have been mesmerized and under some form of hypnosis for a long, long time, that this is immoral for your society to punch down on innocent people, and worst of all, for journalists in the media to not give voice to people that are different than the stereotype. That's when you are part of the system, when you don't do your part to counter hatred, okay? Because there will be calls for violence, because I told you in advance how this algorithm is being set up. I told you about geofencing, and I told the Dallas Observer before Mr. Lang attacked Plano that this was coming, because I have predictions about this for many, many years. And what it is people are programmed that you can't be a person who talks about things before it happens, right? Because that's what a conspiracy theorist does. Right? And right now they're calling the Nazis conspiracy theorists, and that is very destructive and very cruel to ethnic people that have intuitive abilities. Your society is already barbaric and has a barbaric past. You didn't really reach a pinnacle point of fairness and progressiveness. Okay, there is a spirit of evil that is controlling people, period. And that is why, with the departure of Trump, no matter what happens to him, you will still have a Death Star blaming Arabs and people that look Arab or Arabic or Middle Eastern for your problems through this thing called terrorism. And it is a sin. You will be banned from any progressive outlet if you question if the official story is true. But you can question the official story if the victim is a black person. You can, and it is permitted. It is not permitted to question it, though, if the perpetrator is an Afghan. Okay, and these are people that are the descendants of the KKK. Okay, so in their DNA right now, and the people that I've tried to reach, there's like 50 journalists that have fled this newsletter for no reason whatsoever. And you're supposed to be NPR. You're supposed to be spiritualists. You're supposed to be Sufis. Okay, you're collectively judging me, smiling together, thinking that you are all right and I am wrong. And it's the opposite. You're all collectively wrong and responsible as a society if you don't give a voice to the voiceless. And in Texas, they will not. And so what I have to do right now is refuse to allow these tears that I have to explode before this Texas woman who I live with. Like many of you, she has no real feelings for me. She did move me in, but we can't talk about the news and preparedness. And when you're at a level where you can't be a part of a community that's inclusive, where it's about, having meals together and healing one another and talking to one another. I've been here for 6 years. She wooed me to move here, and I thought that she was my best friend. And women need to be honest about the situation, that sometimes, especially when people change and you're in a toxic situation, like it could be really bad to get out of that and very difficult to avert homelessness when you put so many of your resources, including selling them, and it wasn't a person that was totally accountable and honest about their lifestyle. So if I knew she played video games 8 hours a day, I would have never even taken her on as a friend. just so you know that. 8 hours is excessive. And then I can't change it, and then I try to bring it up, and then like that could be perceived as abusive, like I'm taking away her freedom. You know what I mean? And so it's a lose-lose situation because she's embedded with this technology, and now she's suffering from AI psychosis. And so this AI stuff, it is influencing people, and you have the right to disagree with me, but some of you already know that, and I'm coming to you for help. I'm in a vulnerable situation where I'm a guest in a world, in a region that is marking me for elimination. So what I'm doing now is I'm watching in a state of horror and shock that the algorithm is promoting lots of videos still featuring Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, and Alex Jones. Now, these three individuals, this is the main point of this podcast. This is what you need to know. These are the guys that have been pushing the white genocide narrative for a long time. Okay, so if people on the left and others were that concerned about my freedom in the future and the freedom of brown people and the freedom of people that they are blaming, then they would not give them airtime. They would talk about them being the psyops that they are. They would use common sense and realize that if YouTube wanted to stop the spread of Nick Fuentes videos, they could. But they promote Nick Fuentes in my community. It's called geofencing. They can target a zip code. If they want people to round people up, they will promote content, and people will think that they are normal social media people. Modern Americans are not expressing themselves to me, including the journalists on my newsletter, that they understand what's happening with this. They're forcing through Nazi talking points. And these people, as I said years ago, stop calling it a conspiracy theorist, please, and thank you. This is very abusive to me. This is very abusive to me. A psychological operation exists, folks. Even Cenk Uygur says maybe Alex Jones is a psyops. There's many people amongst you that are now looking at conspiracy theorists if it's a white person. Have you heard of the Sam Cedar Show? Have you heard of Tom Hartman? All around you on the left, people are looking for answers now, as long as it's not Alex Jones. But some will look at Alex Jones because they think that he's waking up. There are people saying that the far right is waking up. Okay, the world is not awake to the fact that the government may not be honest with you about the terror threat. Okay, so the government doesn't need Donald Trump. The government doesn't need George Bush to continue to play on your fears. The government doesn't need Donald Trump to play on your fears and your instincts. The government can still play on your fears and your instincts since 9/11 with a new terror attack. Okay, and so that's where we together today we're gonna have a watch party. We're gonna have a watch party today. We're gonna sit back and we're gonna take a look at a couple of videos, and we're gonna comment on those videos. Right? And some of these ideas are going to be new to you, but you need to know about what's going on with the moon mission. They're going to be reflecting sunlight back to the Earth. I did not know that this was coming, but I did know that they were reflecting sunlight back to the Earth through other means and technologies. And I had a suspicion that this could adversely impact human health, and now there are mainstream scientific admissions that human health could be impacted by this sunlight reflected from the moon back to the Earth. Now, do you remember, for those of you that listen to the podcast, even if you may not have agreed, from a reporter perspective, who can maybe paraphrase or recount what I alleged, do you remember what I told you about the solar flares and war? It's a simple yes or a no. And do you remember, even if you scoffed at what I said, do you remember when I told you that there were scientific studies that they did from MIT, where they could see if they can affect the human brain? And do you remember that I cited real studies and that I actually gave you websites with real links to the real media? Do you remember that? Good. Good. I'm glad you remember that. So let's move forward. So because they know, even though you don't, how they can affect your children in the future and even mutate genetics, they're going to change what we are as a people. So while the people are going to call it a conspiracy theory that we're affected by the sun, we're going to continue to be both affected by the sun, by cell phones, by 5G, by subliminals, and things from space. Now, if you think that's too conspiracy, when this is a fact from Science Daily, when this is a fact from the AP, there is something else fundamentally going on with you that you need to ground, because there was nothing said in this broadcast so far that was screaming, that was over the top, that was insulting, or too conspiratorial. So far, everything was legit that was said. The only reason, in truth, that some people will run from this truth, okay, is it's confronting their bias, and it's making them feel a certain way. And unfortunately, and we have to go over this again calmly, I even have to stop walking so you understand what I'm saying. What I'm observing in the real world and on the internet is people crying and becoming offended when I reveal the truth about their bias. Now, you can look at this as a medical situation in a hospital. The purpose isn't to focus on the wound, but to heal the wound. But pain may come from the healing, right? By the way, those with deep pockets dig shallow graves. Don't know what it means, but it came to me when I woke up today. Bam, put them on the glass. I get a tattoo today on my forehead. And ye who has deep pockets digs himself herself a shallow grave. What does that mean? So, do you understand, my son? Now, do you understand the way of the Jedi? Oh, we need to talk about Star Wars. But basically, this is what we have to transcend. This is what I need from you, my friend. This is what I need from you, Jennifer. So I need you to meditate, and I need you to ground, and I need you to do something called vipassana when you listen to me. And you need to be in a state of observation of the breath, and you need to take yourself out of it, and you need to go to the mind of the observer. Do you know what I mean by that? You're going to go outside of your egos and your naps, and you're going to go to the observer, even if you're a journalist and you never meditated, and you're going to go neutral, and you're going to be honest about the real reason so many people in America are going to war. Okay, and you also need to be honest genetically, that there is no strong difference between the left and the right when it comes to genetics and appearance. It's only about fashion. There is a similar ancestry, there is a similar past, there is a similar programming. The politics is a matter of choice. There are the same ancestors in some cases that did the same nasty stuff to the same non-white people. This is why in 2026, on both the left and the right, that wound hasn't been healed. There are really cycles that come back, and there's going to be people that are unfollowing this because I'm speaking truth, and it's confronting a secular world that says there is no battle of good and evil. That leads to atrocities. No, human trafficking women is evil, and I've had explained this to a lot of pretty homeless women on the street that I was trying to befriend in my activist days that just wanted to be street people and hang out with mean street guys in Portland. And I remember telling one really pretty woman who I just want to talk to, you know, there really is evil out here hurting women. And she said, I refuse to believe that. There is no such thing as evil. We're just animals. And there are a lot of people right now that have their viewpoint. And I am coming across a lot of stories about women luring men for dates and throwing them off bridges. It's not misogyny to talk about evil being possible in all human beings. It's actually evil and wicked to say that certain races and certain genders can do no wrong. You need to understand that the white supremacists in Europe use the image of the white woman who can do no wrong as their sigil. This is what they do. The woman with pure white skin with tattoos who has no emotions for non-white people. That is their sigil in far-right groups and in far-right pornography. And pornography now is far-right in many, many cases. Okay? And the progression of violence in pornography exceeds what you would permit to tell you. It would be too much, likely, for you to be willing to remain to this podcast. But you need to know why men that are single, that are popular, sometimes lose discipline and look at websites that your government allows children to look at. You know, people